nowadays, Buddhism has more often to pray for protection from its friends than from its enemies. The number of those who like Buddhism for the wrong reason, wrongly imagine what Buddhism is increasing. And that is the growing threat to the purity and integrity of the doctrine that they profess to support. What is wrong reason? What's the wrong path? The wrong path is that such people who have developed strong religious convictions prior to their study of Buddhism. For example, so although genuinely attracted by certain aspect of the Dharma, they do not hesitate to challenge, misinterpret, and simply explain away. Studying Buddhism intellectually, they think that they have understood it, and so they go out and they explain themselves away without a strong foundation. Like telling people to meditate, just like ignore everything. Nothing is real, nothing exists, just ignore everything. Well, that's the wrong way of introducing Buddhism to other people. Because if you are in a position of power, then whatever you say carries weight. And when you say the wrong things and people follow, the consequences could be detrimental. So one of the most original contributions of the Buddha to human knowledge is the discovery that theories are rooted in desires. And that's why it's not reliable to have that intellectual understanding. Because that intellectual understanding still has the three poisons: greed, anger, and delusion. Clinging to their erroneous interpretations of the Dharma, it is unmistakable indications of the extent of their emotional commitment. They want to introduce Buddhism to other people, not because they want others to understand the truth, but they want to elevate their own self-esteem, their own ego. So enlightenment can be attained by renunciation, not only of selfish desires, but of the religious theories or views. This renunciation of selfish desire is that this craving. When we have craving for something, it may make us feel satisfied at first, but it's not ultimate, because selfishness cannot bring us true liberation. With selfishness, whatever that we have gained, there is fear behind it. If we have this selfish motive or selfish goal to acquire wealth, for example, then there is fear of losing that wealth. It's not the accumulation of wealth that's problematic. It's the self-centeredness that is problematic. If you have wealth, but there is no personal agenda in trying to protect that, then there is no fear. You can use that money to live your life and to help others. The problem is when there is self-centeredness, and that makes you become protective, and that makes you fearful of losing what you have accumulated. Self-centeredness is poisonous because it creates fear. And that's why things that we accumulate based on self-centeredness cannot bring true and complete liberation. In fact, they become hindrances because they restrict us. We become fearful. So what makes people give up studying Buddhism is because selfish craving. They nurture the notion of this ego, the notion of this selfish existence. Buddhism teaches no self. So Buddhism is heading in this direction of no self, but this person is harboring this notion of self. And so they are diverging. So eventually something's got to give, right? The more that you diverge, eventually you will have this spiritual inconsistency because of fame and fortune, a personal gain, but that you're preaching the words of no self. Eventually, the separation will be too far that you will not be able to handle. Eventually, we will give up because of the inconsistency, the spiritual inconsistency. We can no longer handle those internal conflicts. And then eventually, there will be separation. So that's the wrong path. The right path, or the ideal student here, is one who is prepared to admit the possibility of a spiritual experience, which would transcend the physical senses and the rational mind, and willing to give unprejudiced consideration. We should not be fearful in having an open mind. with an open mind, you can choose to accept that what is beneficial and reject what is not. So with an open mind, with awareness, and with a strong foundation of your understanding, you can grow very fast. So such a person would not commit the mistake of thinking that the intellect would be able to penetrate the inner meanings of Buddhism. But in fact, it is through spiritual practice that one can be awakened. This is why back in the days of the Buddhas, and even today, there are people who don't know how to read, but yet they can penetrate reality. And that is because reality, enlightenment, goes beyond language, goes beyond words. And here I'm not saying intellect has no value. It helps us, but there's a trap behind it. We become attached to our own intellect and it becomes a hindrance. But we should put more emphasis that spiritual practice carries more weight in penetrating reality. We have to put into practice what we learn, not just lip service. All intending students of Buddhism would do well to remember that spiritual essence underlies and interpenetrates all doctrinal formulations, will be reviewed not in proportion to the bulk of our scholastic equipment, but only with the right motive. The right motive here is the right view, right? The right directions. Eventually, we will get there.